We went from 200,000 views a month where we kind of did this AI is writing the content, right? Still really good. But then we added this sort of machine learning aspect where we gave it all this previous performance data and told it to optimize towards a very specific goal. And it was able to reach 4.7 million views a month in less than 60 days.
Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the Framework Friday podcast. Would love to welcome Brayden, who happens to also be the nephew of our very own Lucas Robinson. He is the founder of LK Media and also an AI education startup, Digestibly.ai. We'll get into more of that as we get going, but wanted to jump right into this. I remember 3 years ago in LA, we were at this event, Lucas, and Alex Hormozi was there, well known in our industry and business, talking about marketing teams and building media teams. And I remember that conversation, and you and I had some conversations about that afterwards. Do you remember that moment?
Sure. I think that was July of 22, and it was a mastermind group there in LA. Just so happened that the founder of School and Alex were on stage at the same time. Turns out later, I think this is where they met. Now there's some doing some business together. But we were at the time, we're trying to sort out how to build a media team. And it wasn't as easy as today where you just ask GPT, hey, I want to build a media team, walk me through this. Instead, though, we started listening to Alex, and he talked through who he had on the team. He also threw out there that he was producing 4,100 pieces of content a week. And that blew our mind a little bit and set the bar pretty high. And I think after that, we kind of set sail to build a media team, and it's been quite the route.
Yeah, I do have an image of him and I, which is great. He had a wonderful beard, and that's where I learned that he wore the same pretty much tank tops, and he had gone through at least, I think, like 10 different brands to select the right one. And he just also wore Crocs all the time. I don't know if he still does that, but it was inspiring. His beard was inspiring, and we had a great time. Obviously, he really did set kind of a new standard in our minds, kind of took the lid off. And I think that's what he's done over and over again in business, whether it's, your marketing efforts, and whether it's, canvassing, the town with 1,000 flyers versus 100,000 flyers, like just doing more to get better outcomes. So at that time, we had really nothing going on as far as media goes. We had small efforts here and there. And then I remember just over the last even year or so, your nephew, Brayden, who's with us today, he started doing some things in his business. Brayden, when you started working what did our operation somewhat look like in the area of media?
I think we had one social media manager who was basically just overseeing LinkedIn posts and was also kind of the manager of a couple of newsletters that we spun up. And, they were in charge of the pre-production, writing the content, and they were in charge of managing the content after it was posted and getting it posted. And there was definitely no video editing. And so, that's what it looked like, I think, Q2, Q3 last year. Until I joined in Q2 this year. And then there was also a video editor. So that was a big jump, I think.
Yeah. Hiring a first video editor was quite the jump.
Yeah. And Lucas, if you remember, obviously you have been our CEO, CMO, you have worn many hats at times. But as far as I think we've talked about it this way, we've had multiple false starts, and we had some constraints because we didn't quite have the headcount at the time, and we weren't really in a position to scale.
Yeah. We definitely had some false starts here trying to get a media team off the ground. And then, what product was it in support of? Some of our e-commerce stores we didn't really deem as the optimal, products to be spinning up a media team around. At the end of the day, what we've concluded, it's like get a system up. You can't optimize a system that's not up and going. Get a system up and flowing. Pick a product, get it to market, and you can optimize it once it's in market. Otherwise, you can spend a lot of time making edits to something that's not up, and that's death. That's death to a business.
I totally agree. I think getting a video editor was a bit of a forcing function to start working on stuff, because it's like hiring a generic sort of content person certainly is a forcing function for putting out blogs or newsletters or posts on LinkedIn. But a lot of companies do that. And to really stand out, you need to be putting out video content, and having a video editor who's working full time, who's getting paid. It's a bit of a forcing function of all right, it's time to make some videos and figure out what that is. And to Lucas's point, it doesn't just need to be, we're just going to keep editing the same video over and over and never publish it. So shipping something that is kind of a poor product is better than never shipping a great product.
So let's talk about before AI and after AI as far as building a team.
Yeah, so before I think the big difference is that you need a lot of folks on the pre-production side of the content creation. Specifically, you need someone who kind of owns the ideation and script writing step. And that person needs to work in tangent with a researcher. And that looks like daily meetings. That's 2 full-time roles. That's 80 hours a week of work. And kind of that can be expensive, one, but also the constant ongoing meetings can mean that now it takes a week to actually finish one script. And then the second week, you get to start editing it. Whereas in a post AI world, you can do all of that in 1 week. And the script writing for us actually takes less than 20 minutes. So I kind of break down in an AI kind of media team, there's 3 levels. And so the first level, going back earlier to Lucas's point of how important it is to get a video editor, first level is getting a solo video editor who can focus on the actual shipping of the product, what the lighting looks like, what the competitors and folks who are in a similar niche as you, what their editing style is like. And that's really important to get off the ground. And that editor usually can give some assistance in kind of ideation and understanding trends. And when they use AI, that can, be pretty good. And I think that the second level is that video editor paired with a brand manager. And the brand manager, their role is basically 50% quality assurance. So they'll hold the video editor accountable. Whereas on level 1, it's just you as kind of the small business owner holding your video editor accountable to what looks good on social media. And so level 2, you have a brand manager, 50% quality assurance, and the other 50% of their time is actually testing different titles, different thumbnails, as well as experimenting with different hooks and scripts for your videos. Basically, their mission is to make virality a repeatable process. And then the full team, level 3, which is kind of what we just entered in the past, I'd say 30 days, is your video editor, your brand manager, and now adding a social media manager and designers. And so the social media manager is going to kind of fill all the different gaps that the brand manager can't. And that looks like scheduling the content. That looks like prompting and working with the AIs to generate the ideas, the scripts, and researching it. And then your designers even, we see that maybe 50% of our thumbnails are actually made by AI. And our designers are the ones prompting the AI to make those. And they already have kind of the experience and knowledge of what a good design looks like. And so they're better for that position. And I'd say there's still a lot of thumbnails that need to be made kind of the legacy way on Canva and Figma. And so those are kind of the 3 levels of a team. And we just kind of entered level 3, I'd say, in the past month. And once you hit level 3, if you're looking to scale content, it's just adding more people. So whether that's a second social media manager or a 3rd or 4th video editor, it's just scaling kind of the foundation that's already there.
Yeah. One thing we've talked about quite a bit, and maybe you've hit on it, but it's like, people have a really good AI radar, and there's a lot of crazy stuff out there with AI. I mean, in the early days, I think, we had videos, whether it's like a spinning mailbox for our e-commerce website, and all of a sudden there's an arm growing out of it. Clearly, that's pretty easy to spot that that's in the AI slop category. And so it's really about making the right decisions at the right places. And again, we're trying to give our human labor more empowerment to make these decisions, right? Because we're in this augmentation phase of AI where we're not fully dependent upon it. We don't quite trust it. At the same time, we really want to use it as much as possible.
Yeah, I think the brand manager, kind of that 50% role that they have of quality assurance, the most important thing that they're doing is making sure that the content that's being put out doesn't obviously feel like AI. Because when you're scrolling on social media, whether you're reading Twitter threads or watching videos, it's pretty obvious which tweets were written by GPT and then which ones someone actually sat down and thought about writing. And a good media team should be able to use AI to make content that looks like a human wrote it. And so that brand manager needs to be very believable in kind of the social media space. And fortunately for our team, we were able to get someone who has a lot of experience in that space and has tens and tens of thousands of followers on social media. And so they kind of have a good understanding of what people want to see. And they can bridge that gap between kind of the AI versus like the human made content. And they can do that really well.
And that's super interesting because I think that's even a shift for us internally where our recruitment team initially passed on the brand manager that you just referenced because maybe some of the technical capabilities weren't there on paper. Although you and our ops manager realized the fruit of this person is really kind of like a new way of looking at qualification, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to the brand manager, when I was talking with the recruiting folks, is the number one thing that we wanted was someone who was believable and someone who had done this online already. So that way they could hold us accountable. Because a lot of the folks on our team are so AI first already that bringing someone in who is not necessarily AI first was actually a good sort of contrast and a healthy tension in the team, because she can call out the content that doesn't feel like, it's actually going to do well on social media.
Yeah. Well, speaking of AI, I guess let's get into the tools, because this is really where the day-to-day changes. And, the goal, as we've stated, is to enhance what we do with AI, utilize individuals where they're most gifted and are going to have the biggest impact. What does that look like? Content creation. Let's at least paint a quick picture before AI and then after.
Yeah. So, before there was one thing that stands out to me is a lot of subjective calls. So you have, folks looking at thumbnails, looking at scripts, looking through kind of Reddit forums to come up with good ideas. And it's a lot of subjective shots being called. Whereas now in a world post AI, you're able to build out kind of these really great context docs, system prompts, and you can actually have an AI that is much more objective, validate your script, or point out potential issues with it. And the AI that does that, paired with kind of the brand manager we talked about, is like just a complete unlock, because now you have an AI giving its feedback plus someone who has kind of a very believable yet subjective take on it. And those two paired together are really important. And so kind of the process for us in pre-production is we ideate and we have an AI that basically does a very large deep research of certain folks in our niche to see what's kind of being talked about. And that AI, after it comes up with the idea, it returns what we call a TTF, which is a title, a thumbnail, and a flow. And the flow is just kind of the outline of the video. And MrBeast talks a lot about how you want those kind of three things before you even start video editing. So once we have kind of that general outline of the TTF, we pass it off to our research AI, which basically goes online and finds all sorts of different quotes, comments, data points that are relevant to that. Then we're able to take that TTF and that research to the script writing AI. And kind of the social media manager is the one who's pushing it through these different AIs. And 10, 15 minutes later, you have a fully written script that follows kind of all the best practices for social media. And then, other tools we use, kind of hitting on thumbnails and reviewing your YouTube channel to make sure that it's up to date and is following best practices. So great tools for thumbnails are Nano, which I think is probably one of the best tools for image generation, and our graphic designers use that, as well as GPT's native image generator. And then another tool called Pikzels. That tool is really cool as well. And that's actually built on top of Nano with some really great templates and system prompts built into that architecture for character consistency. And then one of the coolest tools we've come across is VidIQ. And this is a sweet tool that you can connect to your YouTube channel. And it's basically able to validate different keywords and hashtags, give you an SEO scorecard. It can even actually generate new thumbnails as well. And you can actually track up to 3 of your competitors, or not even competitors, but other folks who are in the same niche as you, unless here's like the strategy that it looks like they're implementing. So I'd say those tools are all really useful. And the kind of the last one that the video editing team uses is tools like Kling or Motion Array for AI generated B-roll. Before AI, you'd have all these kind of stock B-rolls tools that you'd use. And you could have a Google Drive folder filled with just dozens of subfolders, hundreds, sometimes thousands of B-roll footage that they're just having to click through and find the one that they feel like fits best. But with these AI tools, it takes less than 15 seconds to generate the B-roll that they're going to use.
Yeah. And I think we use a combination really of using AI, actually search those stock repositories to find them, so you don't have to go in and search them all, right? And then if you're
Absolutely.
not finding what you want, the ability to generate them exists, which is just wild, because now you're talking about, unique B-roll that doesn't feel stock in a way, because it's truly never been used before. The ability to generate those things on the fly is remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really sick. We've been able to organize a lot of our B-roll that isn't AI generated with kind of these keywords and descriptors of it. So to your point, the video editors can just do a quick search with an AI tool that's synced to that drive folder. And it returns a couple options, or it lets them know, hey, there is no option. And we actually have it built into the AI. So it tells the video editor, for this stock footage that you're looking for, I'd recommend Tool or Kling, or I would recommend Motion Array, kind of based off the context docs we've given it. So that's been really neat. I think, talking with our lead video editors and different folks who are in that space, like this saves at least 5 to 6 hours a week, which is substantial.
That's incredible. And I think if you look at the way, if you take that together, teams and tools in an AI first world, you now have the capability to not just do more, but do it better. For a small business, the amount of research that we're now able to do, we just didn't have the time. We did not have the resources. The idea of searching and doing what is capable now with AI, again, was almost pretty much impossible. Now very possible. And so our work is validated. Not only is the work done, potentially better than most, but certainly more at scale and consistency. You mentioned that because I think one of the hard parts of humans is consistency. And when you do find something, you can do more of it. And again, Brayden, I don't know if you want to touch on that, but I know, the structure and the way that we built this right now is that it can get smarter and smarter. At least that's kind of where we're headed, is that we can take performance and understand what worked, why, and then feed that back into our prompts, into the things that we are doing, so that it gets better and better, whether that's image generation, titles, etc. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think one of the really cool things about AI is that it is extremely consistent. And if you have a full-time person who's in charge of researching and are working 40 hours a week, even if they have kind of a research template they're following week to week, the quality of that will vary depending on just like what other stuff's on their plate, what's going on in their personal lives. Are they burnt out? But with AI, it continues to get better. And it is so easy to change the behavior of an AI. Like, for an example, if we had kind of that old team before AI, where you have a writer and a researcher, and we wanted to change, like, hey, we want to, now when you write the script, we want you to give us 3 hooks, not just one. And we want these different templates. Like, it's hard to drive that adoption into the team. And not only are we going to have to update the SOPs, but we're also going to have to meet with them and kind of beat the drum on that process change. But with AI doing it, it's really just as simple as going to either the context docs or the system prompt and rewriting a line or two, and then it's done. And so I think that that's really important. And to the point about AI getting better as you give it more data, I think that's absolutely true. If we want to talk more about that later as we're thinking about the future of AI, but I think the fact that it can continuously get better based off of kind of all the performance data is something that's really, really unique. And we haven't seen that in technology in a really long time.
Yeah, I don't want to paint the picture that we think it's all there and already. However, I do think the quality is pretty remarkable of where we're at today versus where we were a year ago. And I think that's what we're trying to find, is just like, where is it starting to work? Where can we start to implement it? And one thing Lucas has continually said is, like, we should be testing these things, even if they're not there, because they will be. And it's just not a matter of if no longer, it's a matter of when.
Yeah, they're as bad as they will ever, or as bad as they will ever be, right? This is only going to get better. And yeah, certainly getting the quality right on these things is a bit of the stage gate before you start scaling things up. And we've seen a lot of poor quality and early production, and to see, okay, how do we get the quality right so that we can scale? And ultimately, we want to not only scale the production, but scale the team. But you got to get the quality right first, and then you're scaling good stuff.
Yeah, I think in the early days there were a lot of quality issues with the AI, and one of the things that I've said, and I'm sure Lucas says this as well, which is like, AI is only as good as the context you give it. And we had kind of early day N8N automations where we were experimenting with creating AI videos for kind of the paid marketing team, and we had, like, as you said earlier, like mailboxes being generated with arms sticking out of them, and then me and kind of the lead video editor go back and we look at the context docs and the system prompts, and we just continually iterate on them, refine them, work on them, take those and actually export them to Claude and ask it, like, hey, here are the context docs and the system prompts for this N8N automation, and we're getting mailboxes with hands. What do you think is the issue? And it's just a week or two of that, and the issue continues to get better. So I think, managing your context is really important when it comes to getting the AI quality to be really good.
Yeah. What are some of the other, I guess, just kind of key learnings here? Because again, we're very much in this augmentation phase of AI, and we're just trying to figure out the things that do work. And what are the learnings? Not just like what tool works or what new position do we have to create, but it's like what are the learnings that are going to be there regardless.
Yeah, I think, broad stroke, it's really about understanding what you want the output to be. Right. And so we kind of learned this when we were working with AI voices, and we went in and used 11 labs originally and kind of selected a default voice, and that voice sounded good and we liked it. And then we realized that, well, we don't want an AI voice, right? We want a voice that sounds like it's a human, right? And we just want it to be AI if AI can keep up with it. And so now that we kind of reevaluated that and understood what we wanted, we started experimenting with other AI voice tools. We went back to 11 Labs and we tried out this tool called Hume as well. And we built our own voice from scratch with our video editor and our brand manager's help. We experimented with cloning different voices of folks in our team and then taking those voices and altering them. And we ended up getting a really great voice. And so now you have an AI tool that is fast, relatively cheap, but also the quality is high because we just paused. We took a week or two to iterate on it, and we built something that now we can use for many, many months. So I think that's really important because we kind of invested into the future with that initial sort of lift.
Well, speaking of the future, again, we're not trying to pretend we can predict what the future looks like.
Yeah, so it's pretty hard to predict the future of AI. Lucas always hits on this Ray Dalio quote that's like, "Those who see kind of by the crystal ball are bound to eat shattered glass," and I do like that. But an interesting story I've heard is a few years ago, some different quant desks stopped actually reading the earning calls of different publicly traded companies, and they started scoring them. So they took the transcripts in real time, tagged the tone and uncertainty of the voices, and then kind of let a small model nudge their positions during the earnings Q&A. And whenever that kind of sentiment got crowded, they added other variables of data, like the pauses between words, edge words, who's speaking when, and that edge returned for the AI. And so I think data, prediction, even like your acquisition function, which is very, very technical, which can be either exploitive, kind of repeating things that have worked in the past versus exploratory, trying brand new things. And I think that media, sales, marketing, all of these other industries and business functions are going to kind of follow in the path of finance. And I think to some degree, we've kind of already seen this work. It's not just theory, kind of on a small scale. We've been able to show AI. Here's a YouTube title. Here was our thumbnail. Here was all of our data, our likes, our views, right? Our retention rate, even the comments, the comment sentiment. What are people saying in the comments? And we've been able to take that and kind of provide it to the AI as a context doc and tell it to optimize for getting more views or a better retention. And it's been able to do that. And on one of my own YouTube channels in my portfolio that we experimented this on, we went from 200,000 views a month where we kind of did this. AI is writing the content, right? Still really good. But then we added this sort of machine learning aspect where we gave it all this previous performance data and told it to optimize towards a very specific goal. And it was able to reach 4.7 million views a month in less than 60 days. And it held that for many months. And so that's really interesting. And just some insight, the variables we gave the AI were the script, the sound effects in the video, the voices, the voice speed, as well as the actual title of the video. And then obviously we gave it kind of the high level metrics. So we gave it likes, dislikes, swipe rate, because this was a YouTube Shorts. We gave it retention rate. And it was really interesting seeing it basically permute these different things that it has control over, like the voices, the title, and the script, based off of all this previous data that it has. And it performed really well. And so that's going to be, I think, certainly the future for media, and definitely the future for all these other things. Like you're running paid marketing campaigns on Meta. And if you can give it all the previous data about like, here's the CTA we used, the headline, the image, here was our CPA, and you're able to give it all that data, I think it's just going to be able to generate better and better ad spend, and get you a better conversion rate if you let it run for a long enough time.
I love it. I love the comparison there to, to finance, and there's probably, no greater place where those type of nuances are important and has been tested over and over again. And obviously guys like Beast came on the scene and completely changed the name of the game to, basically making his own little research team where they studied all of these things. What was the thumbnail? What was the color? What was my facial expression? You see now, like, everyone has their mouth open because, in some way, because they determined, like, if your mouth is open versus closed, you are going to get a much more of a click, right?
Yeah, I remember when MrBeast was on I think it was the All In Summit, he was talking about that. And something really interesting he does is he doesn't just experiment with thumbnails on the next video that's going to be published. He'll go back to videos that are 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, change the titles, change the thumbnails. And that's really interesting. And that kind of falls under the role in our team of kind of this brand manager to be like, we have a new idea. We think all of our thumbnails should contain bold red font, and we're going to test it. But not only are we going to test it in our next video, we're going to go back and change it for all of our videos. And so that is really interesting as well. And working with AI on that is great because it can consume vast amounts of data and kind of have these acquisition functions to make predictions about what's going to perform well and what isn't.
Yeah, I think for small business, what it has done, it has made, these types of practices that large businesses have done. Again, most of the things that we're talking about are just good common sense business. You test things, you do things, with intention. You do things that have worked before, right? These are not new concepts. These are not new theories, but many small businesses, get into the game and they're just, ready, fire, aim in many ways. And now you have a whole new generation of businesses coming up who want to survive. And it's never been easier to be successful in business. At the same time, there's never been as many people in business competing. And so no longer can you just, hope that you have a good product. You may have an incredible product, and it is important, probably the most important thing, that your product is good, that people actually want it, whether it's a YouTube channel or a drink. But the standards have just been raised. And with those raised standards, we now have a flood of tools that allow us to do just this, whether it's VidIQ or something like that. These aren't enterprise only solutions any longer. These are tools that are available for you and I. If you're running your team just by yourself, you have access to tools that will allow you to do these things. Whereas 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if you were going to compete with a big brand, good luck. You had to have size team. You had to have a certain level of knowledge and expertise and time that you just would not have. And in today's world, AI allows small businesses to get into the game, to compete at a very high level, and in many cases outperform these legacy businesses because they are fully bought into this and they haven't had to relearn in kind of this new age. And so it's exciting. And I think, obviously, you're a young guy who's doing pretty well, and I'm super excited, that Lucas brought you in because it is a new era of doing things, and obviously our team has benefited from that greatly. And yeah, I'm excited about the future. I think it just keeps getting better. At least it'll be interesting. And we asked this question just the other day. It's like, there is a quote I've heard, there is speed, price, and quality, I believe, as a triangle. And typically it was, you can only have two of these because the moment you try to do three, you'll sacrifice one of the other two. And I still think we're somewhat there to a degree. Although I think, as Lucas has stated, that is more a human-centric ideology. If you're thinking of if you're only working with humans. But in this world of AI, we believe it is probably possible to have all three.
I feel like there are a lot of folks who understand that AI can get them something cheap and fast, but they might not quite see the quality yet. And I would encourage these small businesses. What I've seen a lot kind of on the ground is a lot of one-shot prompting. And that just means you go to AI and you just shoot it a prompt, write this email, just canceling this meeting. That quality is not going to be nearly as good as a Claude or GPT that has access to your Gmail, all of the previous emails that you've written. So now it knows your tone and your style of, writing, and a system prompt instructing it to reference that context. So I'd really encourage you to, if you're a small business owner, to think about, like, I'm about to ask this AI something. If I was going to ask an assistant who I just hired 10 minutes ago to do this thing, what is helpful context that I would give her? I'd probably give her my email login access. I'd let her take a peek at my calendar. I would walk her through basic business functions and what I do. And it doesn't take that long. It take 15 minutes to collect that context, store it somewhere, and it'll make the quality so much better when you're using, your preferred AI tool throughout the rest of the week.
Well, good stuff. Brayden, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. The future is bright, and glad that you're going to be part of it. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching the podcast today. Join us at frameworkfriday.com/join. We have a free online community. We'd love to see you in there.